So we're back up, and hopefully the audio gremlins will leave me alone. I need some serenity now. You have no idea what it's like to have that happen twice. And just when it was working just fine. So it's never happened before to have audio just drop out when it was working. So I don't even know what caused it to begin with. That's a whole day of troubleshooting, sounds like to me. So anyway, let's get back to where I was at. Thankfully, you could read the captions I had at the top, which I'll turn back on. So at least you could at least read my words if you could keep up with them. So I'll try to glance more over at the audio meter to make sure it keeps going and it doesn't just magically turn off. So what you missed earlier was me saying radar was showing crazy amounts of, 80 to 90 mile per hour winds, but the surface observations haven't quite matched that in most cases. They're just now trickling in, so they're coming in late. But through Norman, that was the hardest hit area of 70 miles per hour. That's still, there's 74. There's a 70 even, a 74. Right through Radar Row in Norman, if you know where that's at. All the Dopplers. That scared the bejesus out of me. I hate lightning. Yay for UPS. So, hey, everything's still up, too. Anyway, so down here in Norman on the south side, there was a fence blown down, I believe. Let's see, where was this at? Where did I see that? I saw it somewhere on a weather service report. 78 mile per hour wind gust blew down a fence just south of the airport in Norman. Okay, so again, the strongest winds were anchored in and around the greater Norman area of the whole entire event, at least on the south side of town. The west side of town, again, the strongest winds are out toward, Minco, Union, El Reno, Union City, Mustang, Yukon, that kind of deal. So now we're going to track these winds down south, and they're moving away quickly out of the, greater Oklahoma City metro area. They're now down to Purcell, Etowah, Tribby. So these winds now, radar is going to be is unfortunately not going to get a good ground estimate anymore because they're up around, let's see, what are we at? 1,200 feet elevation. Now, when you see the orange, they're still showing 85, let me see, close to, there's 97. Good grief, close to 100 miles per hour. That's just stupid wind. Now, that's at 1,300 feet elevation. That's not at the surface. So you're not going to get all of that transferring down. And we have to look at what we had before, which was radar estimating close to 80 to 90 to 95. And when that was happening, we were getting 70, 75 to, I think 78 was the peak. So we're looking at about a 10 difference in that aspect. All right, so that's where we are right now. Let's see what else we got going on down here. Let's flip on the reflectivity as well. Okay. So I'm going to switch over a different radar view, and we're going to check out what's happening here on the leading edge of this line from a different viewpoint. Let's see. Let's do this too. And again, I apologize about the audio earlier. Thanks for your patience and understanding. You know how it is. Stuff happens when you least expect it. All right, so we got some little funky hook echo business going on here. Now, tornadoes were not expected, of course, for this event tonight. So that would surprise me, just saying, because that's not what was in the forecast. So we'll check here real quick. Just because you see a little crazy-looking appendage on the radar doesn't always mean tornado, just so we're aware. See, that was interesting looking though at the time. There's still a lot of wind with this. That's the other deal is even if this was one of those little QLCS type deals or something, or a vorticity signature on the radar, so maybe not quite supercellular in nature. The winds coming out of this area, it doesn't matter. They're as much. They can do as much damage as a small tornado with those 70 plus mile per hour wind gusts. So. That's something that, tornado or not tornado, it's a tornado-like event just in the form of those larger area of winds. Multiple calls of power lines down and lightning strikes across South Oklahoma City. Some calls coming in along Northeast 23rd, Northwest 23rd Street. So but those are where we picked the highest level winds on the south side of Oklahoma City, stretching down to Moore and then down to Norman. So that makes sense. All right, so it's going to be a while to get all those reports all in and updated. So there's a little shear along this leading edge of the line. Shear meaning just convergence of wind. And here, now you were staring at my face the whole time, so sorry, I apologize. I got rattled with the trouble. So you're probably yelling at me, Aaron, go to radar, go to radar. Sorry, I can't see your comments when I'm doing all this. Let's see here. Let me go to this guy. And on top of all that, the radar network system has been having problems sending out updated information from the National Weather Service. So this has been one of those nights where like, you gotta be kidding me. We're gonna make do. Okay, so let's see. Let's go to, that one's not gonna be up. So we'll stick with this view then. That other graphic, when that data feed comes in, it's pretty good because I can plot a lot more different products and stuff on the map to show you things. But right now, we're just focused on this one little area in orange, which anywhere within this area, you're going to have winds around 70 plus miles per hour. I don't think you're going to see those crazy, 80 plus winds. We haven't had any reports of that yet, at least on a wider spread deal. But we're talking right along 39, Highway 39, running out of Purcell to the east toward Waynette. So that'll be your focal area. So if you live in Corbett, Rosedale, Waynette, this will eventually be heading into your area, what's left of it anyway, if it hasn't completely weakened by then. So that's where the pockets of the winds are, the damaging winds. Here in Oklahoma City, also want to show you, maybe go back to radar view here. So you can see the activity continues on an east-west line here along I-40. All right, and then of course you got new stuff down here in southeast Oklahoma, northeast Oklahoma, and even some new stuff popping up out here in the west. So still got quite a few more storms to go here overnight. What you can also see is all these little boxes that show up. So here's one here. These are all damaging wind reports, 70, 70, 60, 60. Again, we saw some of this earlier today in northern Oklahoma and in northeast Oklahoma. And then that was the first round. Like here's a 70 down here, a 60. There's 60 at the airport, Will Rogers, and then a 70 in 65 in Newcastle. All right, and then we had that secondary batch of wind that came through South Oklahoma City, which close that. So we're waiting for reports on that. So a lot of power lines down. And then you have the actual measurements coming in here in a Norman area. Let's see. So there's a 70 and a 70, a 60. We had a 78 somewhere on here in the Weather Service discussion. So those are your other pockets of stronger winds that were reported. So that area is now shifted to the east and south. So the stronger part of the storm, as far as the heavy rain goes, the lightning, all that, didn't get much hail out of this, but it was mainly a wind deal. It's moving out of Pink and then heading towards Shawnee and Tecumseh and Brooksville, Tribby. All right, so we'll look along this line again, looking for anything that's of interest. And even the winds themselves aren't nearly as strong. Let me see. Yeah, they're dropping down to 50 to 60 along the leading edge of this line. So that's not nearly as bad either. Coming into Shawnee, Tecumseh. So you guys don't have much to worry about as far as any of those crazy, ridiculous winds. That'll be confined down here south of Tribby, looks like. Let's see. So let's do this. Let's see, let's turn that off. So of course, these storms without saying, you get severe thunderstorm warnings issued for them. And they issue pretty large swath of boxes. So we're looking at several of these towns and communities. There's Washington, Noble, Slaughterville, Purcell, Pink, Wayne, Bethel Acres, Tribby, all within the next 20 to 30 minutes. Rosedale, Macomb, Tecumseh, Paoli, Byers, Asher. And this is just this one cell that had been producing a lot of the wind. So this is pretty much just what that focus is on. Outside of the fact you're going to get a little bit of lightning and rain, prior to this and or indoor with this. All right. Other storms here aren't nearly as intense or strong. There's going to be your typical garden variety thunderstorm with this, severe weather, pockets of 50 to 60, but it's not like the one we had through Oklahoma City. So you guys in Shawnee and Okemah and all that stuff. You don't have as much to deal with. Down here in southeast Oklahoma, some pretty good thunderstorms down here. Again, garden variety. There's nothing out of the ordinary going on in that region. In other words, nothing like 90 mile per hour winds like we were detecting earlier. These storms up here in northeast Oklahoma are pretty potent, just as far as hail makers go, in and around Pryor and Wagner, just north of Muskogee. So most of the hail, I believe, today was kind of confined to two quadrants, northeast Oklahoma and then kind of northwest Oklahoma. And then after that, it kind of went into a wind event pretty quick. So the wording on this from the Weather Service is going to be containing winds possible up to around 80 miles per hour. Now, we haven't seen that recently. That was when it was going through Norman, but not since then. So that's some good news. All right, we're just going to watch for anything crazy here along the leading edge. Audio still going? Yep. All right. So all these little white pluses you see on the map, lightning. So this is a heck of a lightning storm. So in the summertime, when you have temperatures that are around 100 degrees and you have dew point values around 80, the heat index value with that, by the way, the calculation is around 125. That's what it feels like. It feels like 125 degrees outside. Well, also what you get with that is ridiculously high super Cape values, which can be 7,000, 8,000 joules per kilogram. And that is such extreme instability that, along with some other factors, allows these storms to really get carried away when it comes to straight line damaging winds. Because this isn't an always type of thing. This is more of a rare summertime deal, almost kind of like a microburst event, but just one that just doesn't stop. You call it almost a macro burst, because micro meaning very small, macro meaning much larger. So in this particular case, an interesting convergence of the winds here around Waynette. Now, that's not a tornadic signature, all right, just so you know. This guy right here, where we're looking, all right, you've got your red and green that come together toward the radar, but it's too spread out. It's over a very far, looks like a 3-4 mile square area. So that's just a general convergence line, but what you have on the back end of that is these winds that come in on the backside like this. And these are the ones that radar was estimating earlier. Remember, we're around 1,500 feet now. Let's see, 105 miles per hour. Are you serious? I gotta plot that just to see that on the screen is nuts. So around Waynette, thank goodness you don't live at 2,000 feet elevation or 1,500, because the winds are blowing about 105 miles per hour. So that's crazy, crazy winds in this area. Now, that will not make it to the surface, thank goodness. Not all of it, but some of it. So, the wording of up to 80 miles per hour would certainly cover that. All right, let me see anything else in here. Look at this, 90, 101. Nowhere else do we have anything like that, wind speeds, nor should we. So this is really the only game in town when it comes to damaging winds. So I'll go ahead and hang with this a little bit longer until it eventually calms down, which shouldn't be too much longer. Now, if I take out the storm relative and just go with the straight velocity, that's just insane. We can find 117 mile per hour winds. But again, this is at 1,500 feet. No one goes at 1,500 feet. But that is an impressive number to see on a radar map. You don't see that often. That's a rarity. Let's see here. The other thing, which is interesting, I would think, now there's not a lot of research done with dual pole characteristics and, let me split this, with dual pole characteristics and damaging winds, and whether or not what we would call the tornado debris signature detect damage on a more wide scale. All right. So in other words, if I were able to see a lot of blue on the map mixed into this area, that would, to me, would indicate a lot of damage. In other words, there'd be a lot of trees getting knocked down and thrown up in the air, that kind of deal on the radar. But that would have to climb up to around 1,500 feet, and that's doubtful. So it'd be a very low-level deal. But that's one area of research I'd like to see done more of if given the opportunity. Let's see here. So normally I only cover live for tornadoes, but I do make an exception on widespread damaging wind events that exceed about 75 to 80 miles per hour because they can do as much damage as a small tornado. So I will cover those when I'm available to do that. So again, we're kind of focused here in south central Oklahoma, moving into southeast Oklahoma rather quickly. Waydet, buyers, you guys are on the leading edge of this line of wind. Of course, you get some heavy rainfall with it, so some wind-driven rain. Not a lot of hail with this. I heard a few, maybe baby hailstones coming up in my neck of the woods when it was first going through, and they were few and far between. This wasn't a huge hail maker. Seeing some of the live shots in Norman of some of the tree limbs down and some smaller trees uprooted, so that's to be expected. Alright, what time is this? Just came in. So let me clear this. Let's see, it's around 106, 106. So the winds are coming down already. So it's weakening little by little. So there are some power lines down in Midwest City that are arcing. So, not that I should have to tell you this, but you never want to go near a power line. That means driving over it, under it, through it, around it, anywhere near it. You just want to avoid it at all costs till that line has been terminated and is no longer hot. And you won't know that until crews are there, and then when that happens, they're going to be working on it. And of course, they'll keep you away from that at that point. A lot of times, storm chasers, when they're chasing tornadoes, they'll come across that situation, and they're not quite sure those lines are hot or not, and they usually just kind of have to be very careful and go around them if they can. Sometimes they can't. They got to go pick a whole nother route because you can't always tell if they're hot. You don't want a live wire anywhere near you. If you find yourself in a vehicle, though, and let's say when these lines comes down on top of you, do not get out of the vehicle. You are protected as long as you stay in the vehicle, your arms, your hands inside the vehicle, your windows up, and you just wait for the fire department to get there. And they will cut the power and they'll get you out. But do not try to get out of your vehicle should you have a live wire drop, fall on top of you. You won't like the result. And the reason for that is because it's a Faraday cage. It's like a physics property. So all the electric charge then flows around that vehicle like an egg. So it becomes like the hard-boiled egg. And you're the soft egg inside. You're getting cooked. you're the boiling egg inside, but stay there. Do not get out of that shell until they cut it. So this wind continues to die out. So I'll hang with a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to let this one go. We haven't had any severe wind reports with this yet, since it's been in this part of the country. Even when we had those winds estimated by radar around 116 miles per hour there at one point. Now we could have easily had 116 mile per hour winds estimated, but it was coming in, Oklahoma City metro area. But we weren't looking at 1,500 feet aloft. We were looking down at 50 feet aloft. We were looking at the surface where you live. But if I had gone up higher, we probably would have picked up some higher winds. All right. Let's see if this thing came online. And I think I should be able to do another updated track. What time is it? Man, is it really 12:39? Oh. So anyway, there's some communities involved that'll be affected by this strong storm as it continues to move through that area and weaken as it does so through the next 30 minutes. So again, that takes it through Ada by the time you get to 1 o'clock in the morning. So that kind of give you an idea when you can expect this storm. But again, the winds have weakened considerably. Let's see what kind of data do I have to work with. So in this particular case, south of Waynette, Byers, there's a little patch there that picked up. It's 138 miles per hour. My goodness. Let me go to the other measurement. And it's down to 107. Let's see, Waynette. But we are around 2,000 feet elevation. So around Byers. So Byers, the town of Byers, man, if you were able to get you something you could hear with and crank it up there a couple thousand feet, boy, would you hear some wind blowing. I'm sure you're probably still getting at least 60 at the surface, though, so you might be getting some small, minor damage in town, tree limbs, that kind of deal. Might be a few blown off shingles. But that is definitely the pocket of wind for the evening, is in this little area here, south of Waynette into Byers. Looking for any hot spots. Don't see any. This is the only one. So if you notice here in Shawnee, we talked about how you guys wouldn't have to worry too much about it, how the winds are coming down. So for example, this is 40. There's a maybe 50 coming into town. Tecumseh's got a 58, it's 56 to 60. There's a 65 down to Brooksville, a little higher. These little white hot spots. But again, this is going to be, at this point, probably about 1,000 feet off the ground. So you won't get that directly at the surface. It'll diminish a little bit from friction. On down the south from there, again, is the hot spot coming into Asher. Now, in these cases, what do you do? Well, for a wind event like this, I would treat it as though it's a tornado. In other words, I would get in the shelter, I would get in the center part of your home, that kind of deal. The reason being is, if you got trees, limbs, flying, and you're next to a window, it's a bad idea, right? Rocks and stuff, anything that's a projectile, It's a bad idea. So that's why you want to get to the center part of the house, away from those outside walls, just in case something like that just comes flying through. Plus, it gives you practice in those situations. All right. So we're still looking at the core of the wind here, coming up on 177 and 100th Street, Harvest Avenue. That's the leading edge. But around the county line, on the south side of Byers, heading towards Stratford. So I'm sure we're going to get more reports coming in overnight of, more of these little tree damage areas here in town. The areas hit the hardest we showed you before. Let me take this full screen. So, of course, we had the west side of town, about in this area. And then we had a little hot pocket that went through something like this. And then we kind of jumped. And then we had some pretty good winds then kind of pick up about in this direction. And then they just went blasting through Norman. So those are kind of the hot spots in town. You're probably going to see the most damage here in Oklahoma City. I do see an 80 that showed up here. It was a late that came in. Weather station at the Belmar Golf Course. How about that? 81 miles per hour. So that's the first time I've seen 80 verified. Let's see if I can go back far enough on the data. No, I can't. Okay. So some pretty good damage there, and parts of more with that, I would assume. 81 should be able to do a little bit of shingle damage to roofs. All right, so Stratford again, you're on the eastern fringe of what's moving on in right along 19. It has now moved out of the Byers area. And hey, audio's still working. I don't get it. You have no idea how irritated I am from that earlier. You have no idea. I turned into George Costanza. No, not George Costanza. Well, I don't know. He may have done it too, but Frank. Serenity now, serenity now. Yeah, I think George did do it at the end of the episode. But that's what I was. I was just serenity now. Anyway. All right. I wish I had some reports coming in from down here. I'm going to try something. Hang with me. So here's the Oklahoma Mesonet 1 hour gusts up around, there's 58, there's 78, 68. So you can see how central Oklahoma saw some pretty good numbers. That was the 1 hour. So let's go maximum. So this takes us to midnight. Well, I'll have to go back to yesterday then, since we're past midnight now. I can't believe it's this late. All right. So up here in northern Oklahoma, so there's some 60s, but it doesn't show. This is the Mesonet, by the way, so this won't have all the numbers. It just has the stations that are posted in each county. But kind of gives you an idea where the hot spots were earlier today. So again, central, up here in northwest, and then in northeast for the winds. There was a pretty good one, though, out here, a 66, and looks like near Fort Smith coming in. Okay, so I was going to do something. What was it? What did I come in here for, Aaron? Oh, yeah, pings. Oh, they took the ping network down. Oh, that's why. I was like, where are the ping reports. Oh, that stinks. Let me try it anyways. Go to my website. If you've ever been there, it's AaronTuttleWeather.com. By the way, how much rain did I get? So, out of that deal, all I got was 1200s. Oh, that's so lame. And a 32-mile-per-hour wind gust. Well, that's nothing. All right. Yeah, Northsiders didn't get much. Okay, ping. This is what I wanted. And let me try my other weather station. You're like, Aaron, how many do you have? As many as it takes is my answer. Let's see, what did I get? 1200s. Look at that. That's good. I got two different systems and they measured the same. They should. So I got a new one, a new weather station. And it's all brand new technology. Totally different than the way things have always been done. And I said, all right, I'm in. Count me in. I want to see if this thing's accurate. So I'm going to follow it, trends, and see how well it does. And if it does well, I'll start mentioning it, referring it out as an option. Because a lot of times you guys will contact me and say, hey, what weather station should I get? And I'll start suggesting this one. But that's after I make sure that it's legit. All right, so ping is still down. So what happened with ping is some tool, you heard me correctly, some tool hacked the system to where they were able to, I think it was the state of Alabama. What they did is they checked in severe weather reports and did this. All of these little things were all reports. And they drew little pictures and they drew little fun little things, whatever. Well, this is supposed to be an official government reporting system for the public for severe weather. So because this tool hacked the system and abused it, they had to shut it down and figure out how they did it and then prevent them from doing it. So I don't know if it'll get back up soon, but that stinks because it takes away from reporting information I can pass along to you, and of course that you can report yourself. So there you go. Just a little insider info has been going on behind the scenes in case you didn't know. It's 2020. Anything goes this year. Nothing has surprised me. Every time something comes out, I'm like, yep, it's 2020. Let's see. All right. This wind keeps falling apart. It's actually way weaker than it was, so I'm going to kiss it goodbye. So if you guys down here in this area, you're going to get a little bit of wind with it, but not much. I haven't seen anything that's been crazy. And the radar's been too high on the estimates as far as the speed and the height, so we can't get down low anyway. So we're not going to be able to give you an exact measurement, it's only a guesstimated. And so far things haven't been all that crazy down there. But it's still a severe storm, which still contains sometimes hail pockets somewhere in there, maybe up to an inch in diameter, although I think it's going to be hard to do at nighttime. But the wind had pockets of wind of 60 miles per hour. 58 is the cutoff, technically. So if you get a 58 mile per hour wind, that can do some minor damage. Therefore, that's what constitutes the warnings here for tonight. So that's going to be the main issue here for tonight, where you still get some of these storms in a severe thunderstorm warning. If you don't have it yet, get my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. It's free. It will warn you of this kind of stuff, tell you what's coming your way. Let's see. Some fires out there too, by the way, started from lightning. So anyway, all right. Listen, I appreciate you watching. Cyrus was not my best night tonight. I was a little off because I wasn't planning on covering, and then when I did, my system malfunctioned twice. And it had never done that on that audio before. So I don't even know what caused it. And I have to, if I can't replicate it, how will I know what caused it? So I don't know, man. I'll have to go in there digging. So while you get to enjoy your Sunday, I'll be working, trying to figure out what happened. But anyway, we needed the rain. I had to come with a little bit of the wind, unfortunately, and some of the damage along with it. But man, it's always good to get rain this time of the year. So I'm not going to complain about that. All right, you guys have a good night tonight. Sleep well. And we'll talk again soon. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks.